Jett Lawrence completely shitting on the entire 250 class as he's eating donuts live on Race Day Live.
It says a lot, doesn't it?
Dude, they even make the comment as they're watching, I believe it was 250 Group A, they're
Yeah.
qualifying too there, that Hayden Deegan's favorite thing to have for breakfast is a shake with avocados, berries, and spinach in the morning. And that's how he starts his day every morning, as Jett is literally smashing donuts. And I am dying laughing because I am like, dude, every other guy is like, I haven't even sniffed a donut in the last 10 years because they're telling me that I need to be at a caloric deficit to ride this 250. And Jett's like, yeah, I'm like 6'1", 6 foot, whatever. And I'm just going to eat donuts because it's an off weekend. I just got to make sure I run tomorrow.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
All the yes.
Exactly. The biggest challenge that people have to keep in mind is these athletes are burning sometimes 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. And if you look at anything like a bag of salad, if you look at an extra large egg, if you look at some pretty fundamental items that we eat, the challenge that you run into is eating quote unquote healthy does not have a lot of calorie density. This is the paradox. This is the ultimate challenge that we have with every elite athlete. Is on the front side, they're willing to do the eating the right things that have the right quality of food, fruits, vegetables, and lean protein, high in vitamins, minerals, and macronutrients. The problem is the calorie density forces them to spend the lion's share of their day always constantly eating.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine, like a lot of our top athletes, they might work out sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. Now that may sound a little bit overkill, but think about it: sleep 9 hours, get a workout in. Excuse me, wake up, have breakfast. 2 hours later, get your first workout in. Eat lunch, take a 2 hour nap, wake up, eat a little bit, second workout, and then go into your dinner, and then some soft tissue or mental development, and then back to bed. I know it doesn't sound like a very glamorous life, but like Mitch Payton always says, you'll never make more money than when you're a paid racer. You get paid to travel, you get paid to race, you get paid well, and you get great bonuses. You get bonuses and salary to wear gear, win races, goggles, everything. But when you come back full circle to what you're talking about, and this is why you and I and Justin have talked about it off the air, this is why I got a lot of pushback on the Ryan Dungey program with CBS, because all they focused on was when I asked him if he had eaten his breakfast or ice cream before bed. And it's because of exactly what you're talking about. When you're burning, if the average individual is like any of the listeners, stop and think about this. If the average individual or the average athlete is burning 5,000 calories, that's 67 extra large eggs that they would burn. If you just think about an egg, an extra large egg yields 75 calories of energy. So 5,000 calories burnt, you would have to eat 67 eggs just to break even. Is there a problem if Jett's doing a donut or two? No. Is there a problem if our listeners have a donut or two? If you're burning 6,000 calories, probably not. Now, again, you're going to get people that are hellfire and brimstone that say, "Oh, there's no nutritional value to a donut." I get that, but as you and I have talked about off the record, if you and I go and we buy a brand new dirt bike, and I say to you, "Hey, look, I've heard there's this great idea that I could save 4 to 5 pounds of moving inertia weight on your motorcycle if we run the radiators half empty and the engine casings half empty." And you would go, "Rob, you're an idiot. That's going to excessively stress the system." I go, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're going to save 5 pounds of moving weight. How stressed is that motor after just 1 hour running an engine casing half full with oil and a radiator half full with radiator fluid? Even though we only have an hour on the hour meter, how stressed is that motor?"
Mm-hmm.
And you do that week over week, month over month, at this point, for some guys, year over year. The attrition rate is self-explanatory, because the same way that we would grenade a motor is the same thing that's happening when you're saying, because I want the listeners to understand that the only way the body can rebuild itself is through sleep and food. So if all of a sudden you start stripping the amount of food you're feeding it, how do you expect the body to ever rebuild itself? Look at your blood panel when you get it back. It says, hey, you're out of range on B6, iron, zinc, iodine, whatever the things may be. Well, what would make those blood reports back in range? What you eat and how much. I mean, it's you guys, everybody who's listening is now an expert in blood analysis. Your blood results are nothing more than a byproduct of what you eat and what you're burning in the form of creating energy and dealing with stress. It's literally that simple.
It always
So,
cracks me
yeah,
up when we talk about this stuff because we talk about these kids riding for these
yeah,
teams and the teams trainers, oh, you got to be at a caloric deficit. And I'm like, okay. So if you get down to the basic nuts and bolts of it, which we've all talked about several times, and it's not hard to know the basic info. When you're at a caloric deficit, that means you're losing weight. Okay, simple, that's fine. For we'll call it 80% of Americans, we probably do need to be at a caloric deficit to lose weight. I'm one of those 80%. Will not deny that. I'm way heavier, not way. I'm heavier than I should be, okay? So I need to be at a caloric deficit. These kids that are running anywhere from, let's say, 130 to 160 pounds soaking wet and burning 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day because they're riding 2 or 3 30-minute motos and they're doing an hour and a half bike ride and they're doing strength training and they're doing, yoga or whatever, stretching at the end of the day. They don't need to be at a caloric deficit. They need to be eating 5,000 calories a day to maintain. Like, so it just
exactly
cracks me
right.
up because it's like, what is the point? Like, if they're at the weight they should be, a wrestler doesn't get to his fighting weight and then continue to diet to try to get lighter. Like, that's not how this works. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing of like, what are we really doing? Like, why do we continue? Well, you need to be lighter to ride this 250. Okay, what is the ideal weight? Tell me that. I'll get there, and then I will maintain that. But don't try to tell me what I'm going to do once I get to that point. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And this is what disappoints me when a lot of these teams hire somebody that's it's more of a bro network instead of actually a physiologist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to correct you on one thing. Nobody listening to this needs to put themselves into a calorically restricted or a caloric deficit, as you called it.
Okay.
And here's why. What the listeners need to recognize is you need to control stress. If people who may have heard me on my own public podcast, I always say stress is broken down into 4 categories: personal, professional, financial, and athletic. So if you're in a bad relationship, you hate your job, you're upside down financially, and then you're going to the gym and smashing yourself doing high intensity interval training, you're not going to lose any body weight. I don't care how much of a gap you're putting between what you're eating and what you're doing. We've had people that have presented themselves to us who are gaining weight training for a marathon because their coach has them on a restricted diet, high intensity, high volume. And you can imagine, especially for our listeners, you can imagine the frustration and the vicious cycle. Let me get this straight. I'm running, I'm lifting, I'm eating, I'm counting 11 almonds a day, and I'm gaining body fat.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the listeners to think about this. When you're restricting calories and you're going to the gym and you're smashing yourself and you're increasing body fat, when are you going to realize that model doesn't work?
Yeah. Stress is the great equalizer. I've seen it myself too. And I know this is
Absolutely
terrible to talk about myself, but it's like, I have seen it literally of like, okay, I'm working out. The diet's not great, but it's there. There's some dieting going on, and it's like I'm not. Why is there not weight falling off? Like, I don't understand. And then it's like, okay, well, now in my case, now I'm legitimately an adult. I have a child. I have a business. I have all this stress outside of it, and it's like, okay, well, this is what's happening. And now I have this wonderful Garmin watch that tells me when I'm tired and when I'm stressed. Yeah. And oh, by the way, you're getting sick, even though you don't feel it. By tonight, you'll be sick, so that'll be awesome. So it's good. It's good. So
well, and you bring up a really good point. None of us that ride Moto would completely disregard the hour meter. And then on the flip side of that, none of us would take a motor that has a lot of hours on it and say, you know what, I'm going to take this motorcycle that's got 100 hours on it, and I'm going to take it to a track like Millville or Glen Helen or something that has a lot of elevation change, because we would not have confidence that the motor would not let go when it goes from full load to no load. But yet, if you're running around calorically restricted, you're increasing the stress. When you increase the stress, and I want anybody who's ever been around an infant, if I take a young child, 3 months old, and I bathe him or her, and I get them all nice and warm, but I don't feed them and I put them in their crib, they're going to cry all night long because you have not satisfied appetite. And that's what we refer to as the hierarchy of needs. When you lay down at night and you're calorically restricted, your body does not care about going to sleep, but your body only releases HGH, human growth hormone, and testosterone when you're in a deep level of sleep, REM3. So if you reverse this whole scenario, you're not satisfying appetite before you go to bed. Now you don't sleep deep. Now you don't recover. You don't recover, and your body doesn't release the hormones that make you naturally leaner. That's why you wake up fatter than before you went to bed.
Yep.
So when people see that the belt keeps getting bigger, for women, their intimate clothing keeps getting, they got the back fat and all the frustrating elements. So what do? They go to the gym, smash themselves. They starve themselves. Starving themselves and creating more stress in the gym only negatively affects sleep. And unfortunately, the dominoes are falling the wrong way until they just give up. They go, you know what? I'm just destined to be overweight. That's not true. We have a very, 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 very large weight loss and general fitness division. And the number one thing we do is have them eat every couple hours so that we stabilize blood sugar and reduce stress on the system. We make sure that all of their exercise is low stress, walking, elliptical, swimming. We make sure that they sleep at least 8 hours a night. And guess what? The body fat falls off of them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't create physiology. I don't create the principles of nutrition. But doing this for 38 years and seeing people that report themselves to our office and go, okay, I've starved myself, I've smashed myself, I can't sleep, I've got night sweats, I'm craving simple sugars, I have no sex drive. Okay, how much longer are you going to continue to do what you've proven doesn't work, knowing the result that you're getting? And people say, well, because this is what I think is interesting at your initial comment. When I say to people, eat fruits, vegetables, and lean protein, snack and graze every couple hours throughout the day, they go, oh, that doesn't work. Well, what you've been doing hasn't worked, so how about giving a chance to try something a little bit differently?
Yeah, I watched
Let's
it.
go get us.
I watched a
Go ahead.
I watched a TikTok the other day, and the guy starts off with, "Well, if you really want to lose weight, you got to start with a 72 or 48-hour fast." And I laughed out loud and went, "Yeah, I don't think that's really gonna. I'm not sure that that's the key here, bud. But okay, we'll just
Well,
we'll just move on from your conversation there."
Yeah, for all of our listeners who may have tried, essentially starving themselves, for all the listeners that may have tried to do high intensity training, for all the listeners that have tried to do both of those combined, here's the takeaway from all of this. Always apply it against the world of mechanics. If you wouldn't run your oil low, don't run your food low.
Mm-hmm.
If you wouldn't run your radiator low, don't allow your hydration levels to get off out of balance. If you wouldn't rebuild your motorcycle on a regular cadence, please make sure that you give yourself out. Just literally treat yourself with the same attention to detail that you do the mechanical. Because I say this all the time. If anybody who's listening to this was walking down the street and they literally burnt more calories than they consumed, and their body physically stopped exactly where it was at, just like a motorcycle. You run out of gas, you're stopped. If you ran the oil low and it grenaded the bottom end of the bike and it stopped on a track, we wouldn't let ourselves become void of high quality fat. We wouldn't, if the motorcycle, when it, the radiator has a leak and it overstresses the motor and it locks it up because of excessive heat. If we became, by physiological, all evaluations, we became dehydrated, we literally drop dead. we would seriously take, and not to take light of anything. I've got some athletes that are diabetics. Yourself, myself, our pancreas releases insulin the way it's supposed to. So if we screw up and we eat bad food or whatever, our pancreas adjusts and produces insulin accordingly.
Like the 27
Well,
chocolate chip cookies I ate today. Yes, that would be it. Yep.
well, but think about it. If anybody that's listening has a family member that is, an insulin pump dependent diabetic, it is literally life or death. So what do? They don't screw up because they know it could cost them their life.
Yep. All right,
But
Coach.
because our body will adapt, that's why you have people out there coming up with all these completely asinine type of methodologies of nutrition and exercise. So very